Welcome back to the Science and Shiny podcast from Fast Bowlers Limited. With the first 2025 Ashes test just days away, we're kicking things off with a special episode. Joining us today, we've got Dr. Paul Felton, former ECB scientist, Kevin Shine, former England fast bowling coach, and Richard Johnson, former England international bowler and coach. If you enjoy the episode, make sure to follow and share. It really helps us grow. Let's get started.
Jono, Felt, how are you?
All good, thanks, mate. Self?
Yeah, all good. Right, who's going to get up at 2:30? Watch the first ball. We looking forward to it?
A little bit early, that one, I reckon. Might have to find.
No way.
Might be the start of the second session, possibly. You know.
No way you're getting up, is there? I might be just getting ready to go to the gym, so I might just squeeze a couple of minutes in. Felt,
You'll be halfway through. You'll be halfway through your gym session by then. You'll have it on the background. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, I might get up for 5 o'clock, but it was snowing this morning, so it's kind of like, feels a bit surreal that we're talking about cricket and the first throes of winter and Christmas are upon us. But I think the days of me laying with a Walkman in bed listening to it at 2 a.m. in the morning are probably over with kids now.
Walkman, you are showing your age, Jesus.
Right, yeah, well, at least it wasn't wireless, Johnny.
Fair point.
But genuinely, it's quite exciting time, isn't it? It's actually weird watching cricket in the middle of the winter, but it's the biggest series that cricket has to offer.
It's the one you want to watch, isn't it? It's the one that doesn't matter what other series you sort of watch in the background. It's the one that you do want to get up for, even maybe not at 2:30, but you do want to watch. You do want to watch the highlights. You want to see how the boys go. The big old enemy. It's the big one, isn't it? It's the one we all want to see.
Yeah, I think
there's some genuine fast bowlers on there, isn't there, as well, to watch this year. I mean, and it's great. It's from England's side. You know, it's packed full of bowlers who bowl absolute rockets.
Yeah, it's probably the first one, isn't it, for a long time. I mean, if you go back to probably 2005 with Freddie Harmison and Jones, you know, that was serious pace, but there's even more of them around this time, and you can swap them in and out a little bit as well and not lose that sort of 90 mile an hour searing pace. So, you know, great, exciting squad. Be interesting to see how they go and see what that first wicket looks like.
Yeah, I think there's
That's
lots of options.
mate.
There's lots of options as well. Like I always had a conversation with my brother-in-law who's going to the Adelaide test, and we were kind of saying, out of all of the fast bowlers across both teams, who would your four be that you would take? And it's like, you've got the big three from Australia, but then who would you might take from England to supplement that or maybe replace them? I think it's going to be a really interesting series from a fast bowling perspective.
Yeah, I think you made a good point there as well, Jono, because that 2005 Ashes was about fast bowlers, wasn't it? You know, it was unbelievable watching that quartet come together and bowl so well. Yeah. And I think that just almost set the template for what you'd like to do in the future.
Yeah, there's something about fast bowling that gets you on the edge of your seat, the ball flying past your nose and getting it from both ends. I think, you know, that's going to be exciting. We'll see what the first test at Perth, see what that wicket looks like. Apparently it seems a bit green at the moment, but you don't mind that as a fast bowler, do you?
No, brand new ground as well. So yeah, it'll be really, really interesting. New ground for the Ashes, isn't it?
Yeah, I've not. Have you? I wouldn't have been there. Have you been there at all, either you three?
No, I did 2005, 6, 7 Ashes, and that was at the Wacker, which, to be fair, that went through.
That looked like, I wish that bowled there, I tell you, that looked quite fun to run it on the old Wacker.
It was unbelievable. Even the warm-up pitches, the ball just keeps going.
Yeah,
you know, it's that sort of pitch you dream of. But as we know, mate, you can get it horribly wrong on those pitches, can't you?
Well, I reckon the nearest I've bowled to, from the Wacker perspective, without playing there, obviously, but Taunton 2001, under your coaching, I reckon. Good, hard pitches, bouncy, left a bit of grass on them.
A bit.
Absolutely flew through. Not a lot of sick movement, I got to say. If you got it wrong, you went the distance still, but geez, it was, they were bouncy, really bouncy.
Mate, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I was head coach at that time, so I made sure we had hard, bouncy, grassy wickets. But it's funny, I've never had a head coach job since then because I think they knew what sort of wickets I'd be.
Nah, they're on a route. No, mate.
Yeah, that's for another podcast, I reckon. Back in the day, yeah.
They were good fun to bowl on. The thing is, when you get that bounce and you get that carry through, you still got to be on the spot, right? Because if you miss, batters love it. You know, a little bit offline, a little bit off length. A lot of the opposition bowlers, if you remember, used to come along and bang it in too short. We would get off the back foot. We scored our runs that way. It still had to find that perfect sort of length, perfect sort of line, really, make inroads. Otherwise, you went to this.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because generally in the UK, all our bowlers will be trying to bowl a little bit fuller. You hear a lot of coaches saying, hit the knee roll. I've got to be honest with you, I've never really got that.
Sure.
My take on it is just hit the pitch as hard as you can wherever you're bowling, for whatever tactic you've got. And I think looking at that England attack at the moment, you've got guys who can hit the deck so hard. I mean, you've got Woody, who's a completely different bowler to pretty much anyone in the world at the moment. Not particularly tall, but so fast.
Yeah.
And being able to work between two legs, and really skillful as well. That's the bit people don't really think of Woody as. He is a super skillful bowler. And you got Joffre, delivers from such a ridiculous height, and the other guys, Atkinson, Tongue, and Class, are serious bowlers in their own right too, all with slightly different styles.
Yeah, they're all different angles, aren't they? That's what I find quite interesting. A couple sort of go wider and in, but with Archer and Gus sort of getting in a bit tighter and not letting you get away from it. So it's going to be interesting to see how they all gel together. I imagine it's going to be a 5-seam attack to start with, especially with Woody sort of coming back from that tight hammy. You'd sort of want to cover that a little bit as well, wouldn't you? So I imagine it'd be fine first game.
And the one we haven't talked about is Stokes.
Yeah.
I mean, how well is he bowling when he's fit and going? And Stokes is brilliant at getting himself ready and then being a Lionheart in the series, isn't he? But he's a seriously exciting bowler.
Yeah,
as well.
You almost, again, with the 5, you don't want to over bowl him, do you? It's one of those that he can bowl long spells, but because he wants to bowl, he does bowl spells, and it's almost like you want to save him for the whole series rather than just blow him out the water for the first 2 or 3 tests.
Right, lads, it sounds like we're already getting into our Ashes preview episode here. So shall we start?
Yeah.
I reckon we might have, Phelps. What do you want to start with, Phelps? Where do you think we should kick this off?
I think just go back. I think my first question I quite like what's it like, Shiny, being in what's the build up to an Ashes series feel like as a player and support staff, and how might it differ now than it was 20 years ago?
So I was, whether you call it lucky or unlucky enough to go on the Ashes 2006-07 after the most amazing series of 2005. So obviously the Aussies wanted blood, didn't they? And we pretty much took over the same bowling attack. Obviously Simon Jones couldn't be there, and he would have been sensational in Australia, but unfortunately he was injured. So we still had some fantastic bowlers out there. It was, I was a very young bowling coach, so I'd just come out of being first team coach for Somerset. I was in my mid-30s, probably, trying to work the maths out on that. So I was very, very young, and it was unbelievable when we got off the plane how hostile they were to that England side coming over, probably because what had happened in 2005, but it's just the Ashes, isn't it, as well? You look at the build-up now, it's, the Aussie press are all over them for whatever they can find. But once you got into your prep, and there's been a lot said about the prep as well, hasn't there, that England haven't done enough. Well, actually, we had quite a big prep build-up. We played in Canberra, then we played pretty good South Australia, and also New South Wales. And I remember in the New South Wales game, they had Brett Lee and Glenn McGrath playing in that. And I think South Australia, Gillespie was playing, in their state teams, because they wanted to try and get ahead and get into the England batters before the Ashes even started. And so that's a really, really decent prep. but unfortunately we lost 5-0. So you listen to what people are saying today about the prep, that they've not had enough. Do you know what? I don't go with that. I think the game's changing. Jono and I would have been playing before that and coaching during, this period. So when you had long prep times and now you don't. The game's different. These boys are playing literally all year round. So, I'm pretty sure that the England guys would have made sure that they've got enough overs. They're all fit. And remember, fast bowlers, it's tough, especially when you've got guys like Woody, Joffrey, bowl at express speeds. You've obviously got Tongue, Stokes, Class, Atkinson, all really, really physical bowlers. So I'm pretty sure they've got those guys in good nick to be able to take on these 5 tests. And I think that's what you've got to be able to do, haven't you? Mixing a bit of science, which we'll probably talk about later, with your traditional, have they got enough cricket in them? So let's talk about Josh Tongue. He plays at Notts County Cricket Club, where I'm a fast bowling coach. Josh has played some really, really hard games for us this year to help us win the championship, and he gave it everything. So I now know that he's match hardened to go over to Australia. He's had to recover for some pretty horrific injuries, and he spent the last year and a half doing that. So all credit to him. And they've got to make sure that he's hit the ground running there. And I've got every confidence that he will do that.
I think it's a really interesting point, Shiny, because I think, the fact that you play all year round does definitely help. There's no real big breaks anymore, which we used to have. Probably need a couple of games just to get back into swing. But also, I think, the way you've come on as a fast bowling coach, now there's lots of us around who do that job, that you have to have your bowlers in a good position. Technically, you're monitoring them and keeping them in good positions. And part of getting ready for this was actually you working out yourself a little bit, sort of running bowling, feeling rusty, didn't know why, thought it was just rhythm, but actually you actually just needed a little bit of tinkering, needed a little bit of help, and the more you bowled, the more you got back into it. Whereas we're there now to help them do that immediately. So if you see something wrong, you're helping them, putting them back into their positions that they bowl well in, and off they go again, quicker hopefully, and they don't take as long to find that bit of rhythm and a bit of technique to get the ball where they want it to go.
Yeah, and you and I, Jono, worked very hard on giving you had a lot of injuries in your career, didn't you? And we tried hard to get you to be as efficient as possible, so that you could take as many overs as we could chuck at you. And it was interesting because you had the injury prone tag, didn't you? But yeah. I remember when you were at Somerset, there was a bit of press noise around your injuries, and I did a little bit of research on the overs that you bowled for us, and you were bowling over 500 overs for us, which that's very rare nowadays.
Yeah,
for seamers to get into the 500 pluses in championship cricket. Ultimately, that to bowl a lot of overs, you're going to pick up some wear and tear, aren't you?
Yeah.
But just going back to the Ashes build up again, obviously it's a different level because the scrutiny is there, but it's no different from all pro bowlers when they try to get used to a season coming up. With 14 championship games, T20, now you're sticking 150s in there too. It's just can you do enough to get them ready so that they can perform for a long period of time? Well, you think the Ashes is 5 hard-fought test matches on rock-hard grounds, in front of, a very, very hostile crowd. So you sort of, it's totally, dialed up in every area for those 5 test matches. And the grounds are very, very different too. The pitches and the sort of style of the grounds are very different. So first test in 2006-07 was in Brisbane at the old Gabbatoir. Yeah. And they didn't actually let us drive the coach underneath, because you've got your sort of bunker goes underneath and you can get out into your dressing rooms, which are sort of back down in the stands. So they made all the team walk around, a full ground early in the morning, and that was a good atmosphere. a very good atmosphere. And then, you obviously go and get changed and you come out to do all your warm-ups. And the place is just, the atmosphere you're feeling, it's the Ashes, what happened in 2005. Honestly, it was absolutely epic. It was almost like an assault on your senses. And then you obviously start to get into the games and the pressure goes up all over the place for different reasons.
I think, so what I've come back to that point in a second, Shiny, in terms of what the atmosphere was like just before that first game at the Gabba. But in terms of how do you know whether you're ready and the preparation that goes into it, do you know, or is it trusting what you've previously done before? Is there a point where you feel like you've got the bowlers in a good place and you're ready to go?
I had a really experienced group of bowlers at that particular time, and I was an inexperienced bowling coach. However you look at it, even though I'd done all my qualifications, I'd coached a county side. Troy Cooley, that absolute legend, fantastic mentor to me, had been with England before. He was now in Australia and the Australian fast bowling coach. So that was an interesting little twist on it. So, you'd had a bowling coach who those guys trusted implicitly and had done an unbelievable job. So I was then trying to get to know the guys and build a bit of trust there. But remember, they were all serious operators. Flintoff, Harmison, Hoggard, and you had a young Jimmy Anderson, you had a Plunkett on there. So it was a mix, a nice mix of bowlers there. Saj Mahmood was on that tour as well. So they were trying to get the faster bowlers, tall, young, fast bowlers in there for experience. And ultimately, I had to just be support for those guys at that particular time. I would say since then, every bowler, and as I've got older and more experienced, it's been easier to click into supporting them. I think going there on that particular Ashes series, the guys were well prepared. They were fantastic cricketers, they were, and the lead up was right. Duncan Fletcher was unbelievably good at planning. He took that England side, onto things that we'd never done. Jono's got some unbelievable stats on the Ashes in a minute, which will show you, how hard it is to win against Australia. They're just good. They're just an epic side. But I think going into that particular series, it was just enormous because of what had happened in the 2005. And they still had that unbelievable side, plus Glenn McGrath, who'd been injured for most of the 2005 Ashes when he trod on that ball.
Good. That's still the best side, isn't it? That I think I've seen play Test cricket. That era probably covered about 10, 15 years. They swapped in a couple, swapped out a couple, but it never weakened, did it? It was an incredible batting lineup. One set of world-class players, they go down. It's legends now. Sure. When you look at the stats, the bowlers, legends, you look at the stats. It's just an incredible side to come up against.
It was, and they were top of their game as well, weren't they?
Where would they sit in terms of the West Indies side? Because I'm not quite old enough to remember them in the pomp in the 80s, but that pace attack versus the West Indies pace attack, where would they kind of sit?
That's a good question. I was lucky enough to play at Hampshire with Malcolm Marshall as a young pro coming on, because I started in 86 and he was... I've still never seen a better bowler than him. And there are some fabulous bowlers around, but he was a different class. Could bowl speed of light if he wanted to, but remember, we were playing West Indies and county cricket, and he played every game for Hampshire. Had the amazing ability to still bowl fast, but swing the ball both ways, incredibly accurate. So my experience of him is he was the most versatile fast bowler I'd ever seen, still to this day, and having had the privilege of playing with him as well. But saying that, I now think about all the fast bowlers that I've worked with since, and not just saying this, Jono at his best was he was a 90 mile an hour high bounce and movement bowler. Unfortunately, injuries sort of stopped him from doing it more regularly. Probably I caused most of those, Jono, by making you play when you were injured.
Yeah, just the 4-day game, John. I just need you for the 4-day game. You can have the one.
Yeah, and you can have the Sunday league off.
Yeah,
you can have it off.
45 overs later, yeah. By the way, I need you for the 1-day game tomorrow. Cool. Brilliant.
I still remember sticking my head in the old physio room and saying to Daz, and Daz just looked at me and went, nah. I've just said, mate, I said you could have the Sunday league game off if you played the 4-day game. I lied. You've got to get yourself out there. We weren't doing too well in the Sunday league. So the chief Peter Anderson, great man, just came and said, we've got to win this. Get Johnson out. I'll pay him a lot of money.
Couple of pints of the carry-ons, all right. Good to go next day.
That's right. Just soaked up your ibuprofen, didn't it?
I think that's a sort of a nice link into what's going on in the prep of this Ashes in terms of the fast bowling injuries or non-injuries and what's being reported in terms of wheeling them out the door to get them on the park to play. Maybe changed a little bit since then.
I thought you were going to talk about the prep of a couple of pints and a curry then, sorry.
We won't go into the science of that. We'll save that to get a nutrition on that might know a little bit more about it than me. But yeah, like in terms of both sides have got some issues. It looks like in terms of fast bowlers with Hazelwood and Cummins from the Australian side, and then Woody's had obviously the reported sore hamstring. Do you think how much of a risk do you think it is at that, or do you think it's worth taking the risk in the first game?
I think for the first game, I think if you're going to play a 5-man attack, I think that's worth taking a risk. I think the first game is going to be crucial. How we start the series is massive. We can hit them hard at first game when they're weakened as well with their bowling lineup. And I say that the bowlers coming in are going to be fine bowlers, but you're missing. I wrote down here, you're missing 604 wickets at 23 with Cummins. That's a serious loss, right? So Boland's good bowler, Doggett comes in, but they're just not that quality that they're missing. So I think we have to, if it is a gamble, I don't know the extent of the hamstring, etc. But I think it's worth that first test going all in. That can start.
Yeah, do you think? Yes. Go on, Sean. Here you go.
It sounds like that. Woody's recovered, didn't it? Because he bowled super quick in training yesterday. I saw a couple of clips of it, and it looked like he was absolutely flying. And I agree with Jono. I don't think you can plan around people like Woody or Josra. I think when they're up, I would almost go with the old when they're fit, just play them, get everything you can out of them. Chances of them playing 5 are very, very small. But if somehow you could get them through the first 2, which will be the 2 quickest pitches, then I think you've got you've maximised their potential to make an impact on the game. And we all know if you get off to a flyer, the whole series becomes very different.
Yeah, do you think it makes a big impact on the decision as well, with it being a day-nighter in the second game, and you've obviously got Stark's amazing record in pink ball cricket, that you want to try and get off to a good start? Or do you think you just play your best side and see how it goes? Because we saw in the India series over here where they tried to manage Bumrah's overs and manage the test matches to get him in certain test matches. So I guess there's 2 approaches. You kind of pick and choose which ones you're going to play from the outset, or do you go with you're fit, you play until maybe you're not fit enough to play?
Well, I think Shane nailed it there. The first 2 quickest wickets, get off to a good start. If you can get a lead in those first 2 games, then you can manage it from there. It might be that the pink ball game is only a 3-day test. You just don't know how long they're going to last. Test match wise, the bowling loads actually might be quite low with a 5-man attack. You might be able to get them through 3. It's hard to sort of go, definitely this is, the one that he's going to miss out on, because you don't know what the load's going to be like, you don't know what the pitch is going to be like, particularly so.
I think it brings up a different conversation, doesn't it, around rotation. I've never seen rotation work. And remember, I'm a fast bowler and a fast bowling coach, speciality-wise. What do you think, Jono?
I'm just laughing because I've been in it, I think 18 years, and we've talked about rotation every year for 18 years, and I think it worked 1 year. I think we had enough fit bowlers good bowlers to rotate, I think, once in about 18 years. So yeah.
And you listen to any fast bowler, they don't want to be rotated. If they're bowling well, they want to keep going.
Well,
and actually then that leads to, if you think about, the team, you've got to have competition for spots as well, haven't you? You want people to be trying to, knock you out of your place. Yeah, but you also want people to try and stay in their place too. And yeah, it's a tough one. The more cricket you play, the more wickets you then get international recognition. If you're being rotated, can you get into a rhythm? It's a very real thing, isn't it, Jono? You do get into a rhythm of play.
You do, and your body gets used to it as well, doesn't it? And if you miss that rhythm, and suddenly you are a little bit off it when you first start back. When you've missed a week or 10 days or whatever it's going to be. So yeah, I agree. I mean, I think you want to play as much as you can. It's an Ashes series as well. My God, you want to be at the end of that, 25 poles, and I'm feeling like you're top of the world at the end of it,
And I think there is one, in the modern day world as well. I think there are times when you would look at people who've had injury histories, and Feltz, we can touch on that in a little bit, with the research that's out there. I think we are mindful of that, in that some bowlers who've had a lot of injury history, we need to then think, okay, we probably need to just take them out here, give them a rest, then they'll play the rest of the season. That's your sort of cost benefit stuff, isn't it? But you guys who traditionally, and Jono, some that you and I played with, and and I coached, was Andy Caddick, an incredible bowler who got over 1,000 first-class wickets, with Taunton being his home ground. But the bloke kept going, didn't he, Jono? When he stopped bowling, getting him going again was a nightmare.
Yeah, he was amazing. Hopefully he's not listening to this, because I don't want him to get a big head. But he was probably the best domestic bowler I'd seen, to be honest. I played against him plenty of times and thought he was decent, and it wasn't until I played with him and stood at mid-on and bowled at the other end, and I'm here in the middle of the bat and he's beating the outside edge.
It's unbelievable, wasn't it? Unbelievable.
I was like, what? And he'd be like, just hold it like this, you'll be all right. Yeah, okay, yeah, cool. That's brilliant. But yeah, amazing bowler. But he would turn up pre-season without doing a hell of a lot, would he? If you remember, little bit of a paunch on him. I'm sure he won't mind me saying. And then within about a couple of weeks, he'd have bowled a few hundred overs in warm up, and he was ready to go. Hit the whole season and played the whole season. So.
Absolutely. But he was a match bowler, wasn't he, Jono? He had to get his overs in matches, so he would bowl in practice, and he was very good at that. But even the first few games coming back, he was rusty. But then he'd start to build, and that was it. When you knew when he was starting to go, he was just an absolute joke. I don't think I've ever seen someone play and miss, or batters play and miss as much to a bowler than Caddy.
Yeah, I agree.
There'd be a stat for that now, but I don't think they were around when he was bowling.
No, I know.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think, 2 points here, because I remember me and you having a bit of a conversation about this a few years ago, Shiny, around should we be preparing a bunch of fast bowlers, a bit like baseball, where you rotate your pitches in and out. And I can remember you turning to me and going, well, Jimmy and Brody won't be very happy. That's going to stop them getting X amount of test match wickets and that reputation, and they don't want to be in and out the side and give the shirt away. And the fit to bowl argument around, you can bowl too much, but you can also bowl too little. And that's an interesting, I think, from what we're seeing with this prep, is almost you've got to try and find that bandwidth. And I know it's a big thinking a part of your coaching now around bandwidth, Shiny, that you've got to make sure you're in that bandwidth and not undercooked or overcooked going into this series.
Yeah, I'd say one of my biggest learnings, having been lucky enough to coach for so long in the game and been around fantastic scientists, obviously yourself there, who helped me sort of shape the way I sort of coach technically. People like Troy, who showed me that I've got to have a real depth and breadth of knowledge. I've got to be open and keep going out there and finding stuff that I think works for the game outside of the game. So that would have been your Tim Gabbett, Q-Chronic workload stuff. I went to pretty much most of his lectures when he was over here and studied it. A lot of it was in rugby to start with, but I thought, you know what? There's something in this, and I'd like to really start to shape how I do the workloads for the bowlers. But I don't believe in sort of your red. I believe in can I work them towards a place where they can just keep going. So I definitely adhere to this stay ready so you never have to get ready approach. Don't just bowl loads and never huge bit of time out and go big and get big, because you've got to then try and get yourself ready again, and that always takes longer. You have got to have your mental dropouts from bowling, so you can just regather your thoughts and your physicality. But nowadays it doesn't happen for long, does it? Because you've either got international cricket, county cricket, franchise cricket, which is now everywhere. So we've got now at the end of a long season, Ollie Stone's getting ready to go out to the IL tournament in Dubai. So he literally had 2 weeks off and he's been starting again, and it's been great because we've gone in and done some technical work, so looking at really shoring up a part of his game for moving forward. But also we're thinking, okay, in the power play we want to make sure that part of the game's shored up, and then in the for the death areas, we're going to real fine tuning, which that never happened for you, Jono, did it, when you played?
No. I think the nice thing now is with the franchise stuff, it's not it's not heavy workload, is it? It's I know the games are tiring in terms of there's a lot to do in a short period of time, but they're only sort of 4 overs long, or they're obviously less with the IL-10, but it feels like you can tick over and play, and the playing part's really nice. So, but you don't have to do loads of build up for. There's not loads of loading to go in there, but it gives you a chance to actually work on your skills, gives you a chance to actually improve and get better, which is great.
Yeah, there's still bowlers who are getting injured, isn't there, in your franchise bowlers? So you've Spencer Johnson, is it, a left arm quick, really talented guy. He's 30, was he 30, 31? And he's still picking up back injuries, isn't he? Bowling 4 overs 2 or 3 times a week in tournament. So it still shows how brutal fast bowling is, and that intensity goes through the roof in T20s, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as well, like, we know you can underbowl, so we know that the science here, I think we'll do a podcast on this and maybe get some guests on, but I think around your spine gets harder the more you bowl effectively. So if you don't have that load in, eventually you can still be at an injury risk because you're not fit to bowl, if you want to call it that. And I think that's what a lot of the pros go on about nowadays, or the old pros of like, you've got to bowl to get fit is probably what they meant. So, and if you've got bad technique, you generally will bowl less before you get injured than somebody with good technique and the same sort of levels of resilience. So I think the other important thing is you're never going to take injuries out of the game. I know we've sat in plenty of meetings, Shiny, where we've tried to get the number to 0 and it's just a ridiculous number. And actually, what is the baseline that we can get it down per year, which is the lowest it's ever going to be, because you can't take those freak injuries out.
Yeah, and I think we are definitely starting to get there. But I know that my approach once again is sort of softened on that. I don't sweat on making sure that I can't be worried about them getting injured, because if they sense that in me, the bowlers I'm working with, then they're going to be nervous. So it's almost look, as long as you've done your prep, you've done your physical prep, you're doing your technical prep, and then we just sort of really smooth up your game. I think then just go for it. Just go for it. If and if and when you do get injured, we'll get you back. We will get you back. It's almost taking that fear of injury, because everybody talks about injuries for fast bowlers, and I know why. It's absolutely spot on. When I first joined the ECB, 50% had stress fractures. That was all of our bowlers of national interest, just stress fractures. So take out all the other injuries. That was saying to me, you can't. I've got no one to coach. Because half of them are sat on the physio bed. So then it became, right, okay, we've got to find out why. So the most important thing is why they get injured. And that's then opened up, which I quite enjoy. It's opened up a huge can of worms. You hear so many people talking about, well, that's no good, this is no good. And honestly, it's comedy listening to some of the stuff out there. But I think it's great that everybody's trying to find a why. But I think Jono made the point there. It's most important that the bowler works it out for themselves amongst all these experts that are out there with them too.
Yeah, I think it's really important asking them as well what they think. I think rather than just going gun barrel into it and going, right, here's a load of ideas without actually having some history or ideas of what they've worked on as well.
And I think going back to the Ashes squad, what they've shown this time around is that if there is an injury to someone or someone needs a rest, there's someone ready to come in that's gonna, still hit you at 90 miles an hour, still is taking test match wickets, still good performance. You're not weakening that much. Yes, Archer, it is Woody are exceptional, but you're not weakening that much if you're bringing one of the other guys in to continue it on. So, building that squad and having that squad of bowlers has been brilliant work over the last sort of year or two.
Yeah, I think there's a couple flying under the radar as well. Like you got Josh Tunn, obviously, with the series over here, where I think he was leading wicket taker. And no one seems to be talking about Bryden Cutts either, who record in international cricket is pretty decent as well. So, cool, right. So I think moving this on, Shiny, I think you finished there with saying they're ready, they're fit, let's go. You talked a bit there earlier about being walked around the Gabba first morning. You prepare them all technically, like in terms of how did you prepare them mentally for what they experience when they get there and what goes on in that first morning, and trying to prepare and keep yourself in a good mindset to perform on that first morning?
So for those guys, they were already prepared. They played in that ridiculous Ashes series in the UK. I think the difference was, the expectation was so high. Now, when you've won like that, especially, you've got a target on your head, haven't you? It's so is there, and it was. There was no doubt about that. We actually had a fantastic psychologist out there called Steve Bull, who, it must have been one of the most amazing tours for him just to see how people coped, and that's not just the players, the coaches as well, with what was going on. So I would say mentally those guys were, hardened pros, but going back to what Jono said, that side literally just flew at us, at a million miles an hour, and just wanted to take us out in that particular series. And that was still, I think, you look at that side, it's probably the best side, isn't it, John, that's ever played. The balance in there of batters who could, take the sting out of a world-class bowling attack. They had one bowling spin. They had guys who swung it. Clark, who sort of was in the side then and just wobbled it around. That's the first time I'd seen a wobble seam properly, and seen players, and because people sort of ask, well, where does a wobble seam come from? For me, I remember I took a piece of advice from Troy Cooley, which is, he used to sit down and watch all the replays because he'd be able to get a lot of information from that. And I remember, I think when we went to Melbourne, it was a drop-in pitch, so a lot drier. And I just remember watching, I used to try and get there early to the games just to watch it, or to practice, sorry, you had to swap over time, or I'd stay a bit later just to watch the other team practice, because they're world-class bowlers, aren't they? Gillespie, McGrath, Clark, Lee. And I saw them doing stuff. They were talking about holding the seam, and I thought, this is weird. Now Clark had a bit of a wobble anyway, but the one that I thought, now that's strange, is Brett Lee had an amazing away swing position, didn't he, Jono? When you watch the super slow-mos, incredible with the Kookaburra ball, his first swing. You see this amazing swing. Now, I just remember I'm pretty sure it was Melbourne. It was one of the games that it was a dry drop-in wicket, and he started off with the seam upright, and then all of a sudden he went to a scrambled seam, but it wasn't a cross seam ball. And then the super slow-mos were showing this wobble. So I thought, crikey, that's really different. So they've decided the ball stopped swinging and it started to dart around. And we had left-handers, Cook and Strauss, opening. And it seemed to be a really effective ball for left-handers. So I remember then I went to Duncan Fletcher and said, look, Fletcher, I've seen this. What do you think? And he said, yeah, there's something in that. There's definitely something in it. And we then started to experiment with it, with the wobble seam. So because we had the slow-mos, we could see the angle that they were putting on the seam. So Brett Lee would normally be, a fantastic away swing grip, and then he turned it, put his finger in a certain place, and this thing was oscillating. Then you had Glenn McGrath doing the same thing. He had a bit of a wobble, but then a big wobble, and Clark as well. So we actually started to experiment. So, they were doing stuff in the game that was way ahead of its time to suit the pitches and what the ball was doing. So, watching that whole team, the way they bowled and fitted together, Warne bowling masses of overs, Lee coming in and bowling just short, sharp, fast spells, McGrath just ridiculous. Clark was the guy that I thought was the surprise there. because of the way he operated. Really tall, fast enough, not rocket ship fast, but fast enough, and just nipping the ball around on good pitches.
Jono, did Shiny get you bowling wobble seam at any point?
Do you know what? We didn't have wobble. No.
I'd gone by then from Somerset. Yeah.
It was Caddy would have an away swinger, and then he'd hold this claw thing that would go into right hander or away from a left hander pretty consistently. But yeah, wobble came around after that, as Shiny said, and now I think we went almost right the other way, where everybody wanted to bowl wobble all the time and forgot the skill of swinging it almost. And I think a combination of the two. I think if you can swing the ball still, especially on good flat wickets, it's very effective. And then going to the wobble when you need to, certain conditions at certain times, it's a very effective ball, and everyone seems to now, obviously have it and use it, and it's effective.
It's a good point.
I would have had millions more wickets if I'd had a wobble seam as well, Shiny. Come on.
We have great conversations, and as a bowling coach, I know a lot of bowling coaches. The ultimate skill is still to be able to swing a ball, because you've got command of the seam with regards to angle and how still you can keep it, and we also know you've got to keep it in really good condition. And the wobble seam is a low skill ball. It's more of an intent ball, isn't it, Jono? You stick your grip in, you fizz your fingers down the back of it, but you've got to get something on it to get it to actually really dart around. Yeah. And we now know it's how quickly that seam is just going backwards and forwards. It'll bite and it'll go. And there's definitely a place for it. But I go back to when I work with any bowler now, it's learn to swing the ball. Have that ability for the ultimate skill, and we all know Jimmy Anderson is the king of that, absolutely. And you look at the amazing slow-mos of him doing it, but he learned the subtle wobble, did it slightly differently, and he got the subtle wobble that would still swing, but then it would nip. But going back to it was the Aussies who looked like they invented it. They seem to know the difference between, well, if you keep it up for a little while, when it stops swinging, go to that thing, and and I think the game has now caught on with the wobble seam, and I think it's a good invention. I think in the past there were lots of wobble seam bowlers because they couldn't actually stand the seam up and make it swing. So that's the key with that one.
Funny enough, one of the best I reckon out there at the moment is Gus Atkinson. I think he's amazing at he can shake the ball away if he needs to, but he's got that beautiful wobble, gets in nice and tight, can go either way. So he's highly skilled in both.
And hits the pitch really hard, doesn't he? When he's at his best, and he's switching it into the pitch.
Yeah, correct.
And that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, well, I wonder if we don't hear the term seam bowler used much anymore, and I wonder if in the olden days, that if I can call them that was what a seam bowler did.
Probably. Yeah,
just got it wrong.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Not good enough to swing it.
I know Jono hasn't got all day to sit and talk with us, so let's move on a little bit. I think we all talked about where we'd be on the first morning of the first game. And Shiny, whilst you're here, I think it would be good to go back and visit what happened in 06, 07 and just talk us through like your reflections and what happened in terms of did England win the toss or Australia win the toss and we bowled first?
We bowled. I can't remember who won the toss. I presume it's an interesting one. I can't remember. All I remember is we bowled first. And everyone knows what happened to that first ball, and that was tough, really, really tough. And then obviously at lunchtime you have to sit down and you have a chat with your bowlers about that. But I think that was obviously Harmy who bowled that ball. I think you've got to pay a lot of credit to him. People didn't see the work that he did during the game to settle himself down. Steve Ball was great with that as well. And then in between that game and the Adelaide game, he worked so hard to get himself right. Because that's a scary first ball to bowl, and everybody then becomes an expert. And and that was really, really tough. And I've got so much admiration for how he came back from that. because he actually bowled well, especially in that first spell at Adelaide. You can imagine when he's coming on, and the Aussies are just giving him so much crap for it. And he came back and he bowled okay. You know, and it's obviously a ball that people talk a lot about, but I think the important thing to know is how hard he worked to come back from that, and he did it bloody well. Reflections on? Are you talking about reflections on that game or the whole series, Felt?
I was sort of talking, because I know that we have conversations, and you're very much not a roller coaster type of person in terms of getting too high when there's good things and too low when there's bad things. So I was kind of going down more a bowling route, and I also know that you're big on having conversations with bowlers in games, and we'll see you walking around the boundary at county games chatting to your bowlers.
Yeah, I do. But that's evolved over time. You know, there's time and a place. My bowlers, for example, at Notts, they like me having a little wander around. And sometimes I'm not talking to them about bowling. I might ask them what they've had for food last night. But, you know, generally, Jono, you and I have just been down on the boundary. And in county cricket, there's, you know, you don't have huge crowds there. And sometimes your mind can just go wandering. And, you know, if there's something in their game, because, you know, once again, I talk about the bandwidth, I look at, you know, the way that our bowlers want to bowl, and I'll just go down and just like have a little look. How are you going with this? You know, do you feel you're doing this the way you want to do it? You know, just to keep them going. Sometimes it's just to freshen up. It might be, and it does happen, there will be a technical, you know, whether it's a speed in the run-up, it's a direction change, pre-jump gather. You know, whether it's that back foot position, we really look to try and get into that optimal position. Something might have just moved out because I'm constantly scanning the footage for it. And the way I work with my bowlers, they've got no problem with me coming down and just mention it to them. But to do that, I will ask them first, are you all right with me coming down? Yeah, and we've got used to playing with that. And you're right, I'm not a roller coaster guy. I'm not stupid. I'm aware of what people might say at certain times. I generally don't let it bother me. I've grown a thick skin. I think at that particular time in that Ashes series, at the end of it, my gum shield was out, if I use the boxing analogy, because, you know, getting beat 5-0 and, you know, being a young fast bowling coach on it, it was a really tough experience, but it definitely made me better because I actually thought I've got some holes in my coaching game. And I've got to start to fill those in. And I was lucky enough there to have Gordon Lord, who, as soon as I got home from that whole winter, he said, right, come on, let's go and talk about this. Let's help you get to where you want to go. So I'm eternally grateful for him for doing that. But I still believe that tour was the one that helped me become a better fast bowling coach, for working with, you know, a group of unbelievably experienced bowlers. Could I have done more to help them at that time, knowing what I know now? Yes, I could.
Would you do anything different, Shiny, based on what you knew then? Well, in terms of like anything there?
I think international cricket is tough. So I was an international bowling coach coming in at that time. So all I had was a handover tour, which was a one-day tour in India, 7 one-dayers, and then it was literally straight into the Ashes. So that's quite tricky. You're trying to build those relationships and get to know those bowlers. Knowing what I know now, I would know a lot more about them bandwidth technically. And you know, there are a lot of people out there that will be critical of technique. It means you're putting loads of noise in people's heads, and well, actually, that's not the way we work. We don't put noise, we just put confidence back into them, because, you know, ultimately, if you can get feeling right when you bowl, it's going to make a hell of a difference to how you release it, which ultimately that's our currency, because the release leads to landing on the dinner plate, moving left and right, and being able to do it time and time again. And funnily enough, when your action's good, you're more efficient.
At that level, you know how to bowl. You've got there because you've got a decent action and you can repeat, etc., etc. But the more you bowl, you get into bad habits. You know, bad habits creep in through practice. They can creep in through games. It can be a little bit of fatigue. It can be, you know, tiredness. It can be a niggle. It can be an injury. You're carrying something, etc., etc. So your job or bowling coach's job is just to make sure that you're always operating, as you call it, the bandwidth, but you're operating technically where you want to be as a bowler. Actually, if you're not interjecting and mentioning that, you're not doing your job, right? It's that's part of your job. Maintenance is part of your job. Keeping them at a high level for as long as you possibly can for a year is your job.
Yeah, and bowling's a sequence of highly skilled movements, isn't it? And use the golfing analogy. Yeah, all of those guys in the Ryder Cup, you'd see them on the practice ground with their swing coach, grooving. Why is it different for cricket? Now, I know as a bowling coach, I don't wait for the winter to do my work. I'll coach all the way through, and that's in the middle of a game. I've got no problem with that, as long as I've done the work with my bowlers to help to understand their game, so they're confident for me to go in. So maybe if I'd have done it slightly differently, I'd have tried to get more time with all of the bowlers to work out what they wanted from me. I probably went in a little bit cold in that particular tour. But once again, I was a young fast bowling coach, into a group of legends, and off you go. But I'm totally grateful for the experience, because it shaped how I was going to move forward.
Yeah, right. I think probably time to wrap up. I like what you just said, Shiny. I think a drip-in tap rather than an on-off tap in terms of technique. And we talk about bandwidths. I think fast bowling is still slightly misunderstood, that it's sort of limited by the amount of time that you've got to complete your movement. And if you start changing things and the times go up and down, you find it really hard and your outcomes start to change. And even with Harmy's delivery, it was probably something quite simple that just wasn't quite in the right place, that ended up with something that looked quite drastic at his output. And I think as bowling coaches, you're probably trying to fine tune all of your knowledge to kind of see those little differences or where people step outside of bandwidths. Right. Should we finish with some Glenn McGrath side predictions? I think, Johnny, you got some stats. How many tests have England won in the last, God knows how long?
They've won one series in the last 25 years, which is 6 series. They've won only 4 tests out of 30 in that time. Australia have won 23. So it's quite damning, really, in the last 25 years. But I'm gonna go against that this time, and I'm gonna go for an England win. I'm not gonna tell you the score, I haven't got a clue, but they're gonna win.
So, Johnny's sitting on the fence. Shiny, what are your thoughts?
I'm going to go.
Well, in terms of score,
I'm going to go same. I'm going to go same. I still think in Test match cricket, England are on the way up. And for me, they've picked an attack that is unbelievably exciting. I look at their batters, and I know as a bowler who went in and tried to hit the deck, I would hate to bowl at that batting attack now. I mean, it's ridiculous. And Duckett plays at Notts, and to see how he has developed as a batter is off the chart. I mean, he's your tall bounce bowler's nemesis, isn't he, Jono? Yeah. Just cutting and pulling, and then you go a little bit full, and he just nudges you. That's horrible. And then they've got guys that just put you under pressure. So I think I'm going to go with I don't think there's going to be any draws. Those boys go too hard at it now. So I'm going to go really heavy England 4-1.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's a test either way. I'm in the middle, I think. I agree that I don't think there's going to be any draws, but I think there's been some wet weather about in Australia recently, so but I don't think that's going to affect it. I think the first game is really crucial. I mean, whoever wins that first one's probably going to be off to a flyer, especially with the day-nighter, which I think can be a bit of a lottery in terms of whether you win the toss and whether you bowl under lights or not. But yeah, I think we might at least get 50% of that 4 test record. I think we'll definitely get a couple on the belt. It's just whether we can get over the line in 3 or not. So I'm going 3-2 England. Shiny 4-1.
That's what we're doing, going against history, lads.
I just think previously when we've gone over there, they've had bowlers that are either some of the best in the world, or they've got someone like a Stuart Clark that's come in and done something differently. And I think they've planned to have 3 of the best in the world again, and it's going to. And what's the quality that's coming in? I know they're very good bowlers, but are they Stuart Clark and able to change games, or are they going to be so reliant on maybe a Mitchell Starc in the first game that influences what happens in the second, third games and stuff like that? So.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the key is going to be how we start, because traditionally we might not have started as well. I hope this team don't change I'm pretty sure they won't change their attitude to it, which I think that'll make the Aussies nervous, because it's going to go one or two ways, isn't it? I don't think we're going to see many boring passages of playing this, but they are so confident. Those batters just now seem to have really got their head around, how they attack.
Yes,
if you've got you've got obviously those two opening batters who are so different. You've got to keep adjusting your length. One who's 7 foot tall and one who's a lot smaller. Both trying to do sort of different things to you. Then the talent that comes in behind that. A keeper who can come in and just take his piece. That he's like Gilchrist was, isn't he?
Yeah.
And Gilchrist, I still remember in Perth in the 2006-7 Ashes, how Gilchrist just went mad and started hitting it into the floodlights. And that just takes, as a bowling group, that sort of batting takes everything out of you. And people say there's no momentum in sport. I've definitely seen momentum changed, because when they go off having done that at the end of an innings, and you've then got to come out and bat, for some reason it gives you a lift. So that's why I think if we get the first two games really positive results in those first two games, I think we'll fly for the rest of the series.
Cool. Right, post note. We're going no spinner in the first game. We don't really. Okay, I did a silly
no
question
spin.
asking you two.
No point. No point.
Cool. Fair. So, sorry to all the fast bowlers. Sorry to all the spin bowlers out there that might be interested. Cool. Right. Thanks, guys. Great to catch up, and let's probably catch up on the other side of the first game at Perth and reflect on how it's gone.
All good.
Cheers, Jono. Cheers, Phil.
Cheers, brother. Cheers, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Science and Shiny podcast, brought to you by Fast Bowlers Limited. If you enjoyed the episode, please follow the show, share it with others, and leave a review. It really helps us grow. You can also watch a full video episodes on YouTube and follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook for more clips and updates. We'll see you in the next episode.